We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis in Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 91b. On the previous summit, the Gemara asked, what if you have a situation where the father, he dies, and there's very little property, there's no surplus, so there shouldn't be Kesuvos ben Indichrin, but then it increases in value, so then should there be Kesuvos ben Indichrin? So the Gemara brought a proof from a case where they went to Rav Amram, and Rav Amram said, yes, he told those who got the lesser Kesuba that you have to appease those who have the larger Kesuba, meaning you have to give them the extra, because really they are entitled to Kesuvos ben Indichrin. But then the Gemara says that they went to Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman says, no, Zachu ben Yarshin, Kach muatan v'nisrabu Zachu ben Yarshin. No, it works both ways. Just like in a situation where he has a lot of property, so we say that's a surplus even if it depreciates in value, even if it goes down. So too when it comes to the other direction, if it starts off as nothing, the fact that it increases does not matter. It goes by the moment of Yerusha, by the moment of death. At that moment, there is no surplus, so there would be no Kesuvos ben Indichrin. According to this understanding of Rav Nachman was actually arguing with the psak of Rav Amram. Rashi over here says, Zachu ben Yorshe Ksuba haketana lachlok hakol b'shaveh. Since at the moment of the inheritance, so there was very little property, there was no surplus, so everything is divided evenly. We don't say there's Kesuvos ben Indichrin, and those who had the smaller Ksuba actually benefit because they get to divide everything equally. Ho'elu v'shas misa lo havebu moser. Since at the time of, again, the father's death, there was no surplus. And the Gemara continues, Simon, this is a mnemonic for the following Gemara, Elef umeya mitzvah v'ksuba Yaakov zokav sadosa b'dvarim asikin. And the Gemara says that the two dads, Ha'u gavra da have a maski bei alfa zuzeh. There was a person, and there were creditors against him, they were collecting 1,000 zuz. Havelei trei afadni, so he happened to have two mansions. Zavinu chada b'chamesh meya v'chada b'chamesh meya. He sold one for 500, he sold the other for 500, and now the creditor is coming, he wants to collect his debt, he's not able to collect from the borrower, so he goes, he has a lien on these properties, he wants to collect the properties. So asa balchov tarfa l'chada minayu. So the balchov came, he went to one of the to the lokeach, and he took that mansion, one of the mansions that the lokeach bought, he took that mansion that was worth 500 zuz. Hadar katar fliidach, and then he was about to collect the other mansion from this lokeach, because again, he was not owed 500 zuz, he was owed 1,000 zuz. So now the purchaser didn't want to give up the mansion, so shakal alpha zuzeh. So the purchaser, he took 1,000 zuz, because of lagabe, and he went with the actual 1,000 zuz to the creditor, to the lender. And Amar Lei said to him, Ishavi lach alpha zuzeh. If this one mansion that you took is worth 1,000 zuz, lachai, very good, I'll let you have this one mansion, and that'll pay off the whole debt. I want to keep the second one. Vilo, but if that's not worth 1,000 zuz to you, you want to collect my second mansion, so shakal alpha zuzeh, just take this alpha zuzeh, take this 1,000 zuz in cash, and then I want both of my mansions back that I purchased. Vestalik, and you should be removed from here, get out of here. And so the Gemara says, so is he allowed to do that? Is he allowed to say, if you want to value the mansion at 1,000, then only take one of them, but if you don't want to do that, then I'm going to give you cash. So Sava Rami Bar Chama Lamemar. So Rami Bar Chama thought to say, Hainu Mas Nisan. That's actually the same as our Mishnah, because what happened in our Mishnah? In our Mishnah, they only get to collect, that first set of orphans only get to collect Kesuvos ben Indichrin if there's a surplus. Now what if there is no surplus, but the first set of orphans say, we are willing to depreciate the value of what we're getting, and we're willing to say there is a surplus even though there isn't. So Hainu Mas Nisan, Emamru Yisomim Harei Anu Malin Al Nichse Avinu Yafed Dinar. If the Yisomim say, we're going to make it worth more, we'll make it that there is a surplus of a dinar, even though there is not. They're not allowed to do that. Everything has to be evaluated in Bezdin. So the same thing should be true over here. He's not allowed to say, take this mansion for 1,000. The mansion is actually worth 500. That's not an option. But the Gemara says, Amar le Rava, so Rava said back to Rami Bar Chama, Mi Dami, can you really compare our Mishnah to this case over here? Hazam Islup said Yasmi. Over there in the Mishnah, if we're going to listen to these Yisomim and say that there's surplus when there is not, then actually that's going to cause a loss for the other Yisomim. For the children of the other mother, they're going to end up losing out, because now that there is a surplus, because we've evaluated the property according to the first set of Yisomim, according to what they want, now there's suddenly a surplus, and Kesuvos ben Indichrin now applies, and so they actually lose out, because the orphans of the first mother are going to get far more, because they have the larger Ksuba. But but over here, there is no loss over here. In this particular case, if this person if he gives them, let's say, 1,000 in cash, so then he lent 1,000, got back 1,000. And if he says that he's going to take just the mansion instead for the 1,000, then again, it's not going to be a loss to him. Alpha Yoiv, Alpha Shakel. He lent 1,000 and he's taking back 1,000. It's not causing any loss to reevaluate. And so the Gemara says, fine, if that's the case, v'tirfa bekama kasvinan. But let's say he does agree to it. Let's say the lender says that in his view, the mansion is actually worth 1,000. He doesn't need two mansions. He'd rather not have the 1,000 zuz. He'd rather not have the 1,000 zuz in cash. He wants just the one mansion. So now what usually happens is that a lokach is able to go back to the borrower, to the person he purchased the property from, and say, I need to be reimbursed. I bought from you this mansion. There was a lien on the mansion. It was now taken from me. You need to pay me back because you sold me property with a lien on it that got taken away from me. I want my money back. But now how much money is he able to get back? Because in reality, he bought the mansion for 500, but then he used that one mansion and he gave it to a lender that was owed 1,000, and it ended up that it counted as 1,000. So maybe he should be able to be reimbursed 1,000. So how much does he get back? Ravina Amar Bialfa. Ravina says, yeah, he gets 1,000 because at the end of the day, that one piece of property paid up a debt of 1,000 zuz, and so therefore the borrower now has to give the purchaser 1,000 zuz. The purchaser will actually make money over here. Rav Avira Amar Rav Avira says, no, b'chamesh meya. He only gets 500 because at the end of the day, the purchase itself, he paid 500 for the mansion. It was taken away from him, so he's owed 500. The Gemara says that's the halacha. He's only going to get 500. And the Gemara continues with a similar story. Hahu gavra to have a maskebe meyazuze. There was an individual and there was a creditor against him, and he owed 100 zuz. Havale tre ketine deara. He had two small pieces of land. Chad zavino bechamshin v'chad bechamshin, and he sold one for 50 and he sold the other for 50. Asa balchov, and so the balchov came tarfa lechad minai. He took one of the pieces of land from the purchaser. There was a lien on that property, so he collected 50 of the debt of the 100 zuz. Hadar asa v'katarif lidach. Then again, he came and he wanted to collect the other piece of land, which was worth 50, to get back his full 100 zuz. Shakal kof zuze. So again, same story. The purchaser took 100 zuz. He went to him, and he said to him, if this is actually worth to you 100 zuz, very good. Just take the 100 zuz, meaning if the piece of land is worth 100 zuz, even though it was 50 really, but if it's worth 100 to you, keep it. V'lo, but if it's not worth 100 to you, shakal kof zuze. Then take this actual 100 zuz, and I want the piece of land back. Vestalik, and you should be removed from here. You should get out of here. So again, Savar of Yosef, Lamemar of Yosef thought to say, Hainu mas nisim, that's the same as the Mishnah. Imamru Yisomim v'chulu. Again, if the Yisomim say to us, we're going to value it differently so that there's a surplus, they're not allowed to do that. So maybe over here as well, he's not allowed to say that this piece of land is worth 100 if it's not really worth 100. Amar le Abai, Abai again said back, he responded to Rav Yosef, Midami, can you really compare the two? Can you compare this case to our Mishnah? Hasam Islup Seidali asked me, again, in our Mishnah, if we're going to go by their evaluation, that's going to cause a loss to the other set of Yisomim, because suddenly there's a surplus, and now we have we implement Ksubas ben Dichrin, and those with the higher Ksuba are going to get the higher amount. But over here there is no loss involved either way. Mea Yoev, Mea Shakal. At the end of the day, he lent 100, he's getting back 100. So therefore, again, he's not losing. There's nothing wrong with this person saying, if that's worth 100 to you, good, and if not, I'll give you 100. He's not going to lose out with that deal. And again, the Gemara asks, V'tirfa bekama chasvinan. So here you have a case where this piece of land, even though it was worth 50, he bought it for 50, he's using it to pay off in 100 zuz loan. So how much when he goes back, when the purchaser goes back to collect from the person who sold him the property, how much can he charge? Ravina Amar b'meir, Ravina says 100, it was used to pay off in 100 zuz debt. Rav Avira Amar b'chamshin, Rav Avira says no, at the end of the day it's only worth 50, only bought it for 50, he can only be reimbursed 50. And that's indeed the halacha. The halacha is just 50 zuz. And the Gemara continues with another story. There was an individual, there were creditors against him that were collecting 100 zuz. Shachiv Shava Katina Dara, he died, and he left over a small piece of land, and now the Yisomim, they had to pay up the debt of their father. To have a Shavia Chamshin Zuze, and this little piece of land was worth 50 zuz. So Asa Balchov Katarifle, so what happened was the Balchov came, and he went to the Yisomim, and he took that piece of land in order to collect at least 50 zuz of the 100 zuz he was owed. Azal Yasmi, so now the orphans came and they wanted to get back the land. So Yahavule Chamshin Zuze, they said, okay, you collected the land for 50, here's 50, we're redeeming the land, we're taking it back. Hadar Katariflas, so then he came, and now he's owed another 50 still, so he came and collected the same piece of land now a second time. Azul Lakame de Abaya, so they came to Abaya and they said, that's not our intention. When we gave the 50, we wanted to redeem that property, and we want to take that off, we want to remove the lien, and now if he wants to collect, so there's no lien on that property, he'll have to file find other ways. So they came to Abaya. Amar lehen, Abaya said to them, mitzvah l'yisomim lefroach chovavi, and there's a mitzvah on orphans to pay up the debts of their father. Hani kamoi mitzvah avdisu. On the first one you did this mitzvah, you gave the 50. Hashta kitarif bidin katarif, and now he's collecting for the second part of the debt, the other 50, and that's allowed. He's allowed to take this piece of land the second time. But the Gemara comments that's only true of Lo Amrun. We only say that. We only say he can take the land the second time. To Lo Amrule, if they don't say to him, Hani Chamshen Zuze Dmei Da'ara Katina, that these 50 zuz are specifically to redeem that small piece of land. If they don't say that, then that 50 zuz might just be to pay up the debt. And therefore, if they're just paying up the debt, so now there's still a piece of land that has a lien on it, and there's still more debt to be paid. Aval Amrule, but if they say to him specifically, Hani Chamshen Zuze Dmei Da'ara Katina, if they say, no, we're giving you this 50 zuz for this particular piece of land in order to remove the lien on this property, so saluke salkua, then they have successfully removed him from that property. There's no longer a lien on that particular property. And the Gemara continues, how gavra dezovna l'chsubasa de'ime betovas hana, there was an individual who sold the ksuba of his mother for a small amount of money. Rashi will explain. V'amar le, in any case, he said to the person he sold it to, Yasya aim uma'arif, my mother comes and protests against this sale. It's really her ksuba, not mine. If she contests the sale, lo mafsina loch, I'm not going to pay you back. I'm not going to give you any guarantee. So shchiva ime, so what happened was the father died before the mother, and the mother really was entitled to the ksuba. Then the mother died, and now it was being inherited by the son, and the son had already sold off his right to the ksuba. V'lo ira, now the mother, she never contested the sale. However, v'asa iyu v'kama, but now the son himself, who really had no right to sell it, it was really the mother's, he now contests the sale. He says, what I sold you was nothing, and I also gave you no guarantee, therefore I should be the one to get the ksuba, and you cannot get the ksuba. So Sava Rami Bar Chama Lamemer. So Rami Bar Chama thought to say, that this person, this Yoresh, really is in the place of his mother, and he's able to contest the sale. He can say, look, I wasn't allowed to sell it, I protest against the sale, and therefore you don't get the ksuba, I should still get the ksuba of my mother. But Amar Le Rava, so Rava said to him, to Rami Bar Chama, Nihida Achrayas Dida Lo Kaval Aleh, granted that the person who bought it for that small amount of money understood there was no guarantee in terms of the mother, she might protest, but Achrayas Didei Milo Kaval, but did he not accept the Achrayas when it came to the person who sold it, meaning this person who actually made the sale, he's not allowed to come protest. He was simply saying that if my mother protests, then there's nothing I can do about it. But he was also giving a guarantee that he wouldn't protest, and therefore he is not allowed to protest. Rashi over here says, "Betov dezavna lechsubasa deime shahisa nesul la'acher u'machar ksubasa b'chai bala." In other words, the mother, the father, and the mother, the mother and the husband were married, and so this person who was the son of the mother, he sold her ksuba even though it wasn't his yet. The mother hadn't even gotten the ksuba, the husband hadn't died yet, but he sold his rights in case it would ever come to him. Betov asana means bedavar muad. He sold it for a small amount of money, because it's a doubt that he'll ever even see the ksuba. Shema tamas v'yer shena bala. Number one, maybe she'll die first, the mother will die first, and the husband will inherit her, and there's no ksuba. Or even if the husband dies first, shama yamas haben b'chaya, maybe the son will die before the mother. He'll never get this ksuba. And then the purchaser will get nothing because he's not really a proper shliach in this situation. In other words, he was saying, I'm selling you for a small amount of money on the chance that I eventually get this ksuba. Instead of me getting it, you're going to get it. So Omar Leni also said to him, if my mother comes and protests the sale, there's nothing I can do for you. There's no guarantee. I'm not going to return the money you gave me. I'm selling it to you without any guarantee in terms you don't know if you're ever going to get this property. I don't know if I'm going to get the property. And if my mother protests against the sale, there is no sale. You won't get your money back. So then what happened was, the mother didn't protest, but he himself protested. He said, look, I'm instead of my mother, and I want the ksuba, and I'm not going to return the money, because you bought it without any guarantee. You knew this might happen, and now I'm protesting instead of my mother. So at first they thought to say, Rami Bar Chama thought to say, yes, he's in the place of his mother and he could protest. But Rava said, no, achrayas denafshe, no, the person who purchased understood the mother might protest, but never accepted that he would protest. Im yavohu v'yara dinu sheyachzer lo ma'osav. If this guy comes and protests, so then fine, he can protest and take the ksuba, but he needs to return the money. Now Rashi points out, we understand that of course the person can say, this son over here of the mother can say, look, I want the property, I'm going back on my sale. Why? Because it wasn't his property when he sold it. So he can go back and say, I never sold you anything, forget it, I'm keeping the property, but still he's going to have to return the money. If a person says, that which I will inherit from my father, I'm selling to you, that's not a sale, so you can go back on that sale. But again, he's still going to have to pay him back because this person, there was a guarantee, so to speak, from him to the person, even if there wasn't a guarantee in terms of the mother. Now Rashi just points out, there is a case, let's say a person steals a field, sells it, and then goes and buys it from the original owner in order to make good on the sale. Meaning the person who was the thief, he wants to make sure that what he just sold is legitimate, so he purchases it from the person after he actually sold what he stole. So over there we actually say it does work. The sale actually works because the first person sold now to the second person any power that he had over the field, and it makes it that sale from the thief is actually going to work. So that should be the same thing over here. Even though he doesn't yet have the ksuba, this son, but eventually he will. Just like eventually the thief got hold of the property, so the sale should be good. Rashi says, though, you can't compare the two. There, he's purchasing it in order to make a sale good. He pursues the field and buys it in order to make the sale good. Because he wants to show he's trustworthy with the purchaser. But here, like in this case, where he happens to inherit the ksuba, so that that just happens on its own. He didn't do anything. He's not doing something in order to be more trustworthy. So therefore the sale's really nothing. He can go back on the sale. However, but he has to return the money. Money was paid to him. The person didn't get what he was supposed to get. Therefore, he returns the money. Rashi says there's another way of learning this Gemara. Another way of learning this Gemara is the case is there was a specific field that was designated by the father to the mother as part of the ksuba. Lichsubasa for a ksuba. And what happened was he died, and now the property, meaning the father, died, and really all the property really does go to the son. Now, if she doesn't, she needs to go to court and actually get that field, that ksuba field for herself. So really the son has control of the property because he inherits all the property. He can't go back. He's a real yoresh. It's a real sale. That's what it means to say. Really, he's the yoresh of his father. All the property is his, and therefore what he sold is sold. That's what the Gemara means to say. Now it happens to be that he is obligated to pay the ksuba to his mother. That's true. The mother will take him to court and he'll give the field to the mother, but still it is his property, and therefore the sale is a sale when she claims her ksuba. And there is a lien on this field, and she'll be able to. She will be able to go to the purchaser. The mother can go to the purchaser and get that field out of his possession. So that's why he told him, if my mother protests, nothing I can do for you. So since the person said, look, I'm selling you this field, but my mother might come and take it from you, and I'm giving you no guarantee, I'm not going to give you any of your money back. That's why the sale was made for very little money. But again, in such a situation, the sale itself was a good sale. The person himself, the Yoresh, can't go back on the sale. That's what the Gemara means to say. That's what Rava says. In terms of him himself, he can't go back on the field, but the mother could go back because she has a shibud, she has a lien on the field, so she can end up reversing it, and on that, he was providing no guarantee. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rami Bar Chama says, Ruvain shemachar sada l'Shimon shelo b'achrayis. Let's say Ruvain sells a field to Shimon, and he gives no guarantee on the field. He says, look, if one of my creditors comes and takes the field away from you, I am not paying you back, I will not reimburse you. I'm selling you the field, and you're taking a chance when you're giving me the money. Now Shimon comes along, and he takes this field. He says, you know what, I changed my mind, and he sells it back. Umachra l'Ruvain, and he sells the field back to Ruvain, gets his money back, but be'achrayis. But he actually does give a guarantee, and he says to Ruvain, if it's ever collected, if it's taken from you, this property, then I will reimburse you. Rashi over here says, Shelo b'achrayis, with no guarantee, was the original sale. Kol mi sheyitrafena miyadach afilu b'din lo achzer lachamos. Let's say a creditor comes and rightfully takes the property. I owed him money, and he takes the property from you. I will not pay you back. Now Shimon comes along and sells the field back to Ruvain, bi'achrayis, and he says, you know what, if it's taken from you, Ruvain, then I will pay you back. That if anyone takes it, so then he is going to pay him back, and he is going to guarantee the sale. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf 91b Amud Aleph.